All right, wow, that's great. Okay. Hi. Okay. We're not crazy, we're codependent. Ever since I could remember, I never felt like I fit in. I didn't feel like I was like everybody else, didn't feel normal. I always felt like I was just a little crazy. Because you see, I was really the problem. I was too much. I talked too much, I was too sensitive, too dramatic. And my emotions, they were too much. My highs were so high, my lows were so low. And I was convinced that this made me crazy. At the same time, while I thought I was too much, somehow I felt like I wasn't enough. It's quite something to feel like you're too much and not enough all at once. So I thought, if I could fix all these things that are wrong with me, if I can talk less, be less sensitive, less dramatic, maybe you would love me. Maybe you would find me worthy. And then I could be like everybody else. As I got older, my need for worthiness turned to boys and men. And I thought, if they would love me, if they could accept me, then I wouldn't be so crazy and I would feel loved. You know anybody like that? Who's always looking for outside sources to make them feel okay? Is it your mother, your sister, your father? Is it you? Well, it was me. I was her. Always looking for other people to tell me that I was okay. One of my really good friends told me, she's like, I feel like it's never enough for you. Like you always want more. And she was right. I did always want more. Because even if I had 10 guys who were really interested in me, but there was one who wasn't, all my attention, all my focus went to that one guy who wasn't interested. Because if he would love me, if he would validate me, then I would feel normal. Let me introduce you to some of these ones that I actually entered into a relationship with. There was my 5-year toxic marriage. There was the 27-year-old man-child where I was more his mommy than I was his partner. Then there was a really, really sweet guy. He was very good to me, but he was just out of rehab about 5 months and was in no place to be in a relationship. But I thought, I could fix him. And then there was the one, the relationship to end all relationship, the holy grail of my worthiness with a man who would not and could not commit to me. You see, this guy was the accumulation of every past relationship I ever had. And all my dysfunction came out in full force right here. Our relationship started off extremely intense. It went from 0 to 60 so fast. He showered me with affection, attention. Finally, somebody understands me. He gets me. And as the relationship evolved, it turned more into a game, more into this push-pull effect where he would pull away and I would chase him, and he would give me the silent treatment and I would feel more crazy, so I would chase him more. And one night, we were in this vicious cycle that's become our pattern already. It was a long time, trust me. And this pattern of him pulling away and me chasing him continued, and I'm finding myself sending message after message after message. And some of these messages were filled with hate and rage. I didn't really care. I just needed a response. Because I felt like if he would just answer me, then I would feel okay. You ever feel like that? Like if he would just, if she would just, then I could just. That's where I was. Like if he would just answer me, I would be relaxed. So I was like, I'm gonna send one more message, the perfect message. I'm gonna craft the perfect message, and then he's gonna answer me. And finally I said to him, you know what, please, could we just talk on the phone? Maybe we can work something out. And he agreed, and many, many hours and many tears later, he called me. And the call was extremely brief, and he was cold and detached, and I hung up feeling more alone and more abandoned than I had beforehand. And I found myself on the floor, crying hysterically. And I kind of had this outer body experience as I'm laying there on the floor. And I'm like, who are you? This is not you. You are not this pathetic woman obsessed over some guy. You're strong. You're the epitome of strength. You kill it at work. Everybody comes to you for advice. You're the fixer, the saver. This isn't you. Nobody would even believe you. But that's the dichotomy of codependency, where you can be strong, but not necessarily feel strong. Think about the people in your life who are constantly fixing everything for everybody, who've been through so much, who seem like they are so strong. But it doesn't mean that they feel strong. And I'm laying there, and I felt crazy. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. And I wanted to die. I just wanted to die. And all I knew was that I didn't want to feel anymore. Anything. I didn't want to feel the good, the bad, none of it. I just wanted it all to stop. So I turned to Google, and I started to Google how to detach, how not to feel. Why is he giving me the silent treatment? And I stumbled upon sources talking about narcissistic personality disorder and what's it like to be in a relationship with a narcissist. And I'm reading these things all about narcissists. And they talked about the cycle of being in a relationship with a narcissist. And they said the first stage is love bombing, where they shower you with affection and the relationship goes from 0 to 60 really fast. And they mirror you. So you think, finally, somebody gets me. And then there's the second stage, the devalue, where after some time, maybe you started to call them out on their inconsistencies, or for whatever reason, they decide to devalue you. They'll put you down, they'll make comments here and there. They start to make you feel crazy, giving you the silent treatment. And then there's the discard, where either you became too much or they found somebody else and they leave you. And you're left on the floor in a ball, crying hysterically. And for me, this was a massive realization because so many of my relationships had this exact pattern. So I started to look up what kind of person attracts narcissists into their life. It has to make sense. And then I came upon codependency. And up until then, I thought you could only be codependent if you were raised in a home with addiction. And I also thought only weak people are codependent, and you're not weak, you save everybody. Well, I was wrong. And all the symptoms fit me exactly. And I had some clarity, and I was like, wow, this is a relief. You know, I have a label, I'm not so crazy. But I thought, that's nice, I'm codependent, but I don't need to deal with it because I can beat the system. Because you see, I knew I was codependent and I knew that he was a narcissist. So now I can say the perfect thing to get him to stay with me. This is great. I can help him and get him to beg at my feet. This is great. I don't have to face anything. At that time, I didn't understand the statement of it's harder to quit heroin than it is to quit a narcissistic relationship. And after that, I did do some self-work, and I did do some therapy, but I never really faced my codependency because I didn't need to, because I can beat that. So I was doing this work, not facing my codependency, and I was still in a lot of pain. And a few months later, once again, I found myself on the floor, crying hysterically. But this time, it was because my 23-year-old nephew had passed away suddenly. And the pain was so much. It was so overbearing and so overwhelming. To watch all these people that I love be in so much pain was really hard. And I needed this pain to stop. I just needed someone to save me, to take away this pain. So I reached out to the men who had been in my life, and I texted them, thinking, if I tell them, they're going to feel so bad, and they're going to say just the right thing that I don't have to feel like I'm in pain anymore. One didn't answer me. One's like, I'm sorry for your loss. And I kind of had this realization where nobody was taking me away from this pain. I had to face my pain myself. And over the next few weeks, a lot of different things happened, and I started to have realization after realization. And I started to realize that I needed to stop. I needed to stop tolerating friendships and relationships that couldn't and wouldn't give me what I need. I needed to stop playing the victim. I needed to stop trying to control everything and everyone around me. It wasn't, what can I say? What perfect thing can I say or do so that they'll love me? It was, how can I remove myself from these toxic situations that are not serving me? And it was, how can I start? How can I start to build healthy relationships? Because anything else is going to just feed my crazy. And how can I start to love myself so that I feel whole and I don't need anybody else's approval? And that's when I took the first critical step of actually facing my codependency. And I started to heal, and I started to recover. And when I looked back at the woman that I was before recovery, I remember that I felt so alone. I felt crazy, ashamed, and I felt like no woman in the world had ever felt the way I felt. No woman in the world had ever done the things that I did. But now I know I wasn't crazy. I'm not crazy. I was just codependent. I am codependent, and now I'm a recovering codependent. And no matter what happens in my life, I will never go back to being the woman that I was before recovery. Today, I work as a life coach, and I help people heal from their codependency. And I help parents overcome conflict with their teenager to build lifelong trusting relationships. Because as a mom, I know what it's like to raise a child from a healthy place versus an unhealthy place. And I made a decision to stop that generational cycle with me, to not pass along those codependency traits to my son. And now I help parents deal with their teenagers because I know that the only way to truly heal any parent and teen relationship or child relationship is to heal the parent first. And a few years ago, someone had told me while I was on the floor crying hysterically that one day I would be helping people with codependency, or I would be helping parents and teenagers, I would have actually been really offended because I would have been sure they were making fun of me because I was crazy. How could I possibly do that? But now I know that there's hope and that there is recovery. And my message for you is, if this resonates with you, and you think you might be codependent, and you think maybe your codependency is not a big deal, I'm here to tell you that I also thought my codependency was not a big deal, and it was. And when I took that critical first step of facing my codependency, I was able to heal. And I was able to change my life drastically. So if you take that first critical step and actually face your codependency, to do the work that is needed, to get the help that you might need, you can and will change your life drastically.